83 tons of gold issued by a Chinese jewelry company was found out to be fake. An insider told us the story behind the scene. The world's largest hardware tool company shuts down in China, and Chinese state media downplays the impact. Chinese police published a man for breaking the regime's internet censorship. Netizens say there could be unusual tricks behind police surveillance tools. China is considering revisions to its defense law, and one of them is raising concerns. A poll, meanwhile, shows how many Taiwanese are willing to fight if attacked by China. And U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is visiting some southern Asian countries. China is not happy about it. Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Earlier this year, more than 80 tons of gold issued by a Chinese jewelry company was found to be fake. Regulators have yet to explain why. An insider told us that the gold was smuggled out of China and sold in Hong Kong, and described being one of the operation's middlemen.
In order to secure loans, Chinese jewelry company King Gold Jewelry issued 83 tons of gold to moneylenders and trust banks. That amounts to 22% of China's annual gold production. The problem is, the gold, valued $4.2 billion, was found to be fake. Earlier this year, Chinese media reported that they are actually gilded copper. The company's stock plummeted nearly 30% on Nasdaq. It later voluntarily delisted its shares. To this day, Chinese regulators have not said where the genuine gold is, if it exists. But one person claims he knows the answer. Yi Qiwei is a member of China's so-called red aristocracy. He is from the Manchu ethnic minority. His father was a senior communist official, and his grandfather was a communist revolutionary who helped the regime seize power. The insider said the real gold was actually stolen from the Chinese institutions and sold in Hong Kong. He knows because he is one of the middlemen. Last October, he heard from his connections that there were gold from mainland China cheaper than the market price.
Every day it would come in from the Chinese city of Shenzhen. We would go buy it every day, 10 kilos, 20 kilos, 30 kilos, and then sell it in the afternoon on the same day. We made money from the price differences. We didn't know where the gold came from.
Messages show the seller telling him the gold was from Chinese governmental sources. When Yi became suspicious of the amount and authenticity of the cheap gold, another contact told him it was actually stolen from China, but the person quickly deleted the message. After the media reported on the Chinese jewelry company's fake gold scandal, he was convinced that the gold bars he bought and sold were the same batch. That's because the numbers printed on them match the range of numbers printed on the Chinese company's gold bars. He said nearly all major organized crime groups or triads in Hong Kong were involved in the gold laundering.
The people in mainland China first swapped the gold bars with fake ones. They smuggled them out, and then the gangs here in Hong Kong were responsible for contacting buyers for them and then transporting them. All the buyers they found were big foreign investors, not Chinese ones. That's because there was a problem with one person in China buying gold in large quantities. So they were looking for foreign buyers, those from the US, Europe, and Japan.
He said people being investigated for the scandal now are just scapegoats.
This is not something one or two people can do. The money involved is about $1 billion, and the amount I got involved with is just the tip of the iceberg.
The fake gold was discovered in February, but no media nor Chinese regulators spoke a word about it until June. It remains a mystery what type of powerful force in China was able to smuggle such a huge amount of gold out of China, giving order to Hong Kong crime groups and keeping Chinese media and regulators silent for so long.
Till this day, nobody knows where the gold is. That's why I want to say that the Chinese system is rotten to its roots.
Yi said he has benefited from the CCP system, enjoying a wealthy life and meeting people like Bill Clinton. But he realized no one can stay secure for long under the system.
My grandfather told me before that it's painful to live in this country because you are not allowed to speak the truth. Even when he died, he had to take lots of secrets with him. So I don't want my daughter or other children, next generations, to grow up in such an environment. Because if it's only in China, that's fine. But now the censorship is affecting the whole world. The Chinese censorship is telling the world what's okay and what's not okay.
Reporting by Xiaohua Gu and Penny Zhou, NTD News.
A major U.S. Fortune 500 company announced it will close its business in China. It cites the U.S.-China trade war and the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, virus as main reasons for its sudden exit.
The world's largest U.S. hardware tool company, Stanley Black Decker, announced Monday it is closing its factory in China's Shenzhen city. Thousands of workers became unemployed. This triggered a strong reaction in China's manufacturing industry. According to the announcement, the reason for closing is that competition in the market has increased. Therefore, a reorganization of business resources is needed. According to Chinese state media, those who were unemployed were quickly hired by surrounding companies, and the recruiting companies came from China's Dongguan city and other areas. However, a local Dongguan netizen told us the contrary.
Many of the commercial streets are now empty. They are all empty shops, and many of the shops inside the plazas are now empty, and business is not doing well.
Another Shenzhen netizen said,
Foreign capital is migrating. It's hard to find a job. The Communist Party protects the rich and powerful and doesn't care if you live or die.
Many foreign companies have moved their industrial chains from China to Southeast Asia. This is due to the Sino-U.S. trade war and tariffs imposed by both sides, as well as the CCP virus outbreak. In an interview with Radio Free Asia, a deputy secretary general of the Taiwan Chinese Economic and Financial Association said major product infringements by other companies in China were a big factor causing the Stanley Black Decker factory to close down.
Technology theft is rampant. More and more competitors have emerged in mainland China's market, and some companies' advantages have been plagiarized.
A recent survey by Standard Chartered found that more than 70% of companies in the Pearl River Delta region are considering relocating. Many major companies such as Samsung, Nokia, Sony, among others, have closed their factories in China, and a large number of high-wage jobs have been lost to Vietnam, India, and other places. Stanley Black Decker is currently ranked 220th in the Fortune 500. It is unclear whether Stanley Black Decker will move their production line back to the United States.
U.S. sanctions on Chinese telecom companies Huawei and ZTE appear to be a wake-up call for the country's chip industry. Poor funding and management practices, as well as a lack of expertise, have now led to more and more bankruptcies.
A wave of Chinese chip-making companies going bankrupt has caught the public eye. 6 of them, worth around $1.5 billion each, recently declared bankruptcy. 2 major Chinese ministries related to the industry responded to the news last week. They admit that policy and funding incentives have caused serious problems in the industry, and that duplicated work and many new companies joining the industry has led to a tremendous waste of resources. The news immediately struck to stock markets. Chip and semiconductor-related stocks plunged after days of highs. Douglas Fuller is a professor at Hong Kong City University and an expert on China's industrial policy in the chip sector. He revealed in a report that the wave of new manufacturers entering the industry is being driven by subsidies, or what he called the hope for even more subsidies. Financial Times quoted the U.S.-based Semiconductor Industry Association on the massive scale of Beijing's subsidies, saying Beijing subsidized chip makers with up to $50 billion over the past 20 years. While a report from the OECD stated that 2 Chinese chip giants received government support totaling to about 1/3 of their revenue. As for another semiconductor maker named Silicom, 50% of its net income is acquired through subsidies for the past 3 years. During the first 3 quarters of this year, over 13,000 small and mid-sized enterprises have registered as semiconductor companies. It marks a 30% growth spurt compared to last year. Many of the new registrations lack professional experience in the industry. Chips are the driving force behind nearly all high-tech industries. They're found everywhere, from smartphones to cloud computing to cars. For now, China is only capable of mass-producing 14-nanometer chips. Compared with other top chip makers, that's an estimated 15-year development gap behind the United States. That means China still heavily relies on foreign chip imports.
Now we turn to China's economy. A growing trend has emerged where Chinese people sneak into Vietnam for job opportunities. This Monday, Vietnam authorities intercepted over 100 Chinese citizens. They crossed the border illegally to seek employment in Vietnam. They used to work in China's southern Guangdong province, a major manufacturing hub. But they lost their jobs after companies started moving to Vietnam in droves. And this isn't a standalone case. Last week, videos posted online claim almost 1,000 Chinese technicians set out for Vietnam to find work. And back in July, Vietnam authorities arrested over 20 Chinese citizens for illegal border crossings. They were also job seekers. The trend marks an unusual reversal. Up until last year, it was still common for Vietnamese workers to enter China illegally for work. From 2016 to 2019, over 70% of the Vietnamese citizens crossing borders illegally were headed for China. Famed Chinese economist He Qinglian says she sees the reversal as a sign of China's worsening economy. She explained the manufacturing industry started shifting out of China 5 years ago. But the pandemic and U.S.-China trade war sped up the process. But leaving China without permission isn't easy. Chinese authorities are reportedly setting up walls to prevent citizens from fleeing. Now we look to China's internet surveillance. A man from northeast China was penalized for bypassing China's censorship firewall. That's after police found him using special software to browse websites blocked by the regime. Chinese citizens can only visit websites Beijing approves of. Its firewall blocks tens of thousands of websites that the regime considers sensitive, including YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. To access blocked websites, Chinese internet users have to use special apps or virtual private network services known as VPNs. But these apps could expose them to surveillance risks. One Twitter user claims that a large number of Chinese VPNs are developed by the internet police. She alleged the purpose is to make it easier for police to track the rule breakers, especially those who gained influence online. NTD can't independently verify her claims. Among those influential users is citizen journalist Fang Bing. He lives in Wuhan, the center of China's virus pandemic. This February, he posted videos of bodies inside Wuhan hospitals on his YouTube channel. He later went missing and his whereabouts are still unknown. VPNs owned by Chinese companies do have the potential to expose users to regime censorship. Under Chinese law, all companies must hand over user data if regime officials request it, though there are exceptions.
VPN software that is heavily blocked in China should be on the safer side.
Leo is referring to software that's blocked even more strongly than usual by the regime, called UltraSurf and Freegate. He's been using them to circumvent China's internet censorship for over a decade. What sets these two apart is that they're developed by members of a spiritual group. In the early 2000s, a group of overseas adherents of Falun Gong developed the software together. It was an effort to break the Chinese regime's internet censorship. Falun Gong is a spiritual meditation practice that's been heavily persecuted in China for over 2 decades. But UltraSurf and Freegate users are not limited to Chinese netizens. Their users have expanded to countries like Iran, Egypt, and Syria, countries where government officials model China in terms of internet control. Now we turn to China's defense law. Amid the rising tensions between the U.S. and China, Beijing authorities are considering updating the country's national defense law. One of the most notable additions is raising concerns. It outlines premises that would allow China to mobilize resources in preparation for war. Under the revision, if China's so-called development interest came under threat, the country could mobilize the entire nation against it. Chinese authorities remain vague about how it defines development interest. It's unclear if actions like the U.S. imposing sanctions against Chinese companies would fall into that category. Now we take a look at a poll from Taiwan. In recent months, China has ramped up its intimidation tactics against Taiwan, repeatedly performing military drills nearby the island. That's as concerns about possible wars in the Taiwan Strait have surged. A recent poll conducted by the Taiwan International Strategic Association shows if the Chinese regime did send troops to attack Taiwan, nearly 80% of Taiwanese people are willing to fight. According to the data, more than half of the island's population believe the United States will send troops to help defend Taiwan, while nearly 1/3 say the U.S. will not. But the war is not the first choice for many. The survey showed that more than half of Taiwanese people polled say the current status quo with China should be maintained. About 25% responded that relations with China should be repaired, while only around 13% agree that Taiwan should be independent. China's territory is 270 times larger than Taiwan's. Beijing's communist regime claims Taiwan as its own territory, something the democratic island denies. The U.S. is set to open an embassy in the Maldives for the first time. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo made the announcement Wednesday during a 5-day Asia trip, attempting to counterbalance the rise of China in the region. He called the opening of the embassy a historic announcement. Pompeo said on Twitter the cooperation between the two countries will benefit both our nations, adding it will advance peace and security in the Indian Ocean region. This follows a meeting with Sri Lanka's foreign minister in Colombo. The meeting took place after China raised objections on Monday to what it called U.S. bullying of Sri Lanka. This after Washington said the Indian Ocean island must make difficult but necessary choices regarding its ties with China. Pompeo called a strong sovereign Sri Lanka a powerful strategic partner of the U.S.
It can be a beacon for a free and open Indo-Pacific. Look, that's quite a contrast to what China seeks. We see from bad deals, violations of sovereignty, and lawlessness on land and sea that the Chinese Communist Party is a predator.
The 5-day tour is aimed at bolstering allies against China's increasing political and military inroads into the region in recent years. China has invested billions of dollars in projects in Sri Lanka and the Maldives as part of its Belt and Road Initiative of transport and energy links. The U.S. believes the program is designed to trap smaller countries into debt. Next up, Pompeo is set to visit Vietnam on Thursday and Friday. That's according to the Vietnamese government website. The government said in a statement the visit will mark the 25th anniversary of diplomatic relations between the two countries. The U.S. State Department has not confirmed the visit. According to the planned schedule, Pompeo is set to hold meetings in Indonesia on Thursday. In a pretty shocking interview last night, Hunter Biden's former business partner said Joe Biden is compromised by communist China. Tony Bobulinski says he worked on a deal between a major Chinese energy company and the Biden family while Joe Biden was vice president. He said the vice president was directly involved in the project and even had an equity stake in it. It's big news because Biden has always said he never discussed business with his son Hunter. Bobulinski says he's coming forward because Biden called Bobulinski's account of what happened Russian disinformation. Bobulinski is a Navy veteran and says he's sickened that anyone would accuse him of working against the United States.
A former business partner of Hunter Biden said Joe Biden and his family are compromised because of business dealings with China. Tony Bobulinski made the claim in an interview with Fox News aired on Tuesday night. He is a former business partner of Hunter Biden, the former vice president's son. Bobulinski told Tucker Carlson, quote, "I just don't see, given the history here and the facts, how Joe can't be influenced in some manner based on the history that they have with CEFC. CEFC was a Chinese oil conglomerate. It's now defunct. Its chairman, Ye Jianming, had close ties with high-level Chinese officials and was once touted as the Rockefeller of China. Corporate documents obtained by the Epoch Times, now made public, show in 2017 Hunter Biden, James Biden, the former vice president's brother, Bobulinski, and 2 other partners formed a joint venture with CEFC's Ye. It's called Sinohawk and was formed in Delaware. Bobulinski was the CEO of this joint venture. Joe Biden has denied involvement in his son's business dealings. His name also didn't appear in any of the corporate records disclosed by Bobulinski. But Bobulinski told Fox News the Biden family name was one of the key offerings from Hunter Biden and his partners for the joint venture. A 2017 business proposal prepared for CEFC features a photo of Joe Biden with then-President of Colombia. Bobulinski also said he had 2 in-person meetings with Joe Biden because he was taking on the role of Cinehawk's CEO. Bobulinski entered the public eye last week when he made public his work with the Bidens. He said he wanted to come forward publicly to clear his family name. The earlier New York Post stories were called Russian disinformation. The reports disclosed emails allegedly from Hunter Biden's laptop.
Hunter Biden, James Biden, Bobulinski, and Joe Biden campaign didn't immediately respond to requests by our sister media, the Epoch Times, for comment. U.S. senators are pushing a bipartisan bill declaring that China is committing genocide against Uyghurs and other ethnic minorities. The resolution declares China's atrocities against Uyghurs, ethnic Kazakhs, Kyrgyz, and members of other Muslim minority groups in the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region constitutes genocide. Republican Senator John Cornyn sponsored the resolution and introduced it on Tuesday, along with Senators Marco Rubio, Jim Risch, Bob Menendez, Ben Cardin, and Jeff Merkley. Senator Jeff Merkley said the resolution would hold China accountable under the 1948 UN Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide. Merkley called China's assault on Uyghur Muslims genocide pure and simple, adding America can't stand silent. Senator John Cornyn said in a statement the resolution is the first step toward holding China accountable for their monstrous actions. China denies claims of concentration camps, calling them vocational centers instead. Leaked documents seen by the BBC confirm that 1 million Uyghurs were locked up and forced to undergo ideological re-education. The UK is stepping up to help Hong Kongers. It last week confirmed its visa offer for nearly 3 million of the city's residents. The move is part of the UK's response to Beijing's national security law over Hong Kong, a former British colony. All Hong Kong residents with British national overseas status are now eligible to move to the UK, as are their family dependents. The offer has no quota or cap on how many can come. Around 3 million are eligible. Currently, there are over 360,000 passports in circulation. The application process will open in January of next year. British Consul General to Hong Kong, Andrew Haynes, said the imposition of the national security law on Hong Kong marked a clear erosion of the rights and freedoms for the people of the city. This new route to the UK is part of our commitment to the people of Hong Kong. The national security law went into effect in June and gives Beijing extensive powers to shape life in the city. The law criminalizes any acts deemed to be against the Chinese regime. Related crimes carry a maximum penalty of up to life in prison. Now we take a look at Canada. The country's Foreign Affairs Minister, François-Philippe Champagne, spoke about religious persecution in China, Iran, and North Korea on Tuesday. It was International Religious Freedom Day. Champagne said Canada remains concerned by the persecution of Uyghur Muslims, Tibetan Buddhists, Falun Gong practitioners, and other faith and belief communities in China. According to the Pew Research Center, China has the highest level of government restrictions on religion. Iran and North Korea also rank high in religious restrictions. Champagne noted in his statement, persecution and discrimination based on religion or belief have worsened during the pandemic in China. He said Canada will continue to stand up for human rights at home and around the world. And that's all for today's China in Focus. Thanks for watching and see you tomorrow.